Hello, and welcome to This All Stops When We Start Talking About It. My name is Jill Carlson, and I'm going to try my best to catch you up. Those of you that have joined don't know what happened in parts 1 through 29 or the other three cases that I did before I started this one. So I'm going to do my best to try and catch you up on case number 4, which is the case I've been talking about online recently. That case began in May of 2017 when I started representing a male client who was going through a divorce from his ex-wife, and they had two children together. At the time of the filing of the divorce, I believe the children were 3 and 4 years old. So when this gentleman came to my office, he let me know pretty much right out the gate that he was a victim of domestic abuse. Those were not his words; those were my words. In fact, when I told him that he was a victim of domestic abuse, he said, "But I'm the man." But the things he was describing to me were 100% abusive tactics that I'd been trained in my context as a domestic violence attorney to know that, were absolutely domestic abuse. I say that the wrong way. Anyways, long story short, I went ahead and filed with him. His ex-wife was particularly nasty, both inside and outside of court. She lied about him, and I told the court pretty much immediately, I think pretty much from our first filing, that we were very concerned about her misusing child professionals or her framing him for child abuse or domestic violence to try to gain an advantage in our custodial case. That was when we were under Judge Todd Plew, and I do believe that Judge Todd Plew saw what was going on here and did a pretty good job. He didn't give us everything we asked for, but he did a pretty good job of keeping things under wraps. We did have to have a protection order hearing for my client to try to prevent her from having access to him, as well as her mother, who lives and works in the area and is quite obsessed with this case and with my client, I believe. As well as the children involved in this matter. But the judge did enter some orders back at the end of their divorce limiting the mom's ability to try and manipulate systems to set my client up. And everything was going okay until really 2022. And we had a couple little bobbles here and there, but in 2022, I was touring. Those of you who don't know me, I actually have a side job, or I used to. I used to have a side career doing some stand-up comedy, and I was out on the road sort of touring. My client knew that. We didn't have anything open because their divorce had finalized in 2017. And he approached me telling me that she had approached him asking to be able to go back to school and asking him to pay more child support while she did that. So, because of the fact that I was on the road, my client didn't want to argue with her. He didn't want to go to court, and he trusted that the government would do the right thing. He allowed the child support enforcement individual, Janet Crawford of Dolores County, as well as Dennis Goldbright, the county attorney, make a proposal to him, excluding me from any of those negotiations. But at the time, we didn't know that we should be on guard. We didn't realize the government was going to try to screw my client over. Long story short, my client agreed to pay more child support. That got filed with the court. And then in November of 2022, which was supposed to be 1 month before she was supposed to graduate, my client found out that she had dropped out of school and never told him. So she wasn't working and she was just living off of his money. So in November of 2022, he went ahead and filed a motion to modify child support. And in January of 2023, we got a new judge appointed to our case, and that judge was William First. And Judge First didn't like me. Him and I had a history together. I had worked for him at the district attorney's office, was fine there. But then later on, I had a series of cases I brought to him that involved very, very serious child abuse situations, very serious domestic violence situations, sex assaults, sexual harassment, etc. A number of different cases, theft of medical records, you name it. And Will First declined to do anything in each of those cases that I brought to him. Each of them, he chose to protect the abuser over the victim in each of those situations. And there were a lot of victims. There were a lot of victims back in 2017. Um, Not my client. My client wasn't a victim then. He became one, but he wasn't one then. Anyways, long story short, whenever William First was running for judicial positions in 2022, I wrote to Governor Polis on 2 occasions. Once when he was applying for the La Plata County judgeship, and once when he was applying for the 22nd Judicial District position, and said, "Hey, I don't think you should appoint this guy. I think he is not good for children and families. I think he doesn't understand the law, and I think he doesn't care about the damage that happens to children and victims." And I mailed those letters to Governor Polis. I have not been shy about my opposition to what William First did when he was the district attorney's office. He allowed serious, serious misconduct by government actors to occur and did absolutely nothing about it, sat on his hands. Which should have been my first clue that he was always going to pick his buddies in the government over innocent people, but naive me, I trusted that the system would work, and I trusted that if you take an oath of office, you stand by it, but I guess that's my bad. Anyways, moving forward, he got appointed to our case. We finally had a hearing on the child support matters after we found out she had cheated and lied and was stealing my client's money essentially in April of 2023, where her child support did get reduced significantly. And during that whole entire spring, summer of 2023, what we were completely unaware of was that the mother, the grandmother, an occupational therapist who didn't have licensure, some teachers, etc., tried a variety of different tactics to set my client up for child abuse. It started in January of 2023, actually one day after William First took the bench. The mother and the grandmother took the child across state lines to Utah to the clinic where the mother works at and tried to get him to fabricate, the oldest one, fabricate child abuse allegations against his father. They tried to take the other child a week later. That child refused to endorse any allegations. And on the same day that that happened, we found out that the grandmother and the unlicensed occupational therapist attended one of my client's children's IEP meetings without telling him. Nobody knew that he didn't know there was an IEP meeting scheduled for that day. And he certainly didn't know that the grandmother that he had tried really diligently to prevent from having any access to his children and this unlicensed occupational therapist were in that meeting. He didn't even know the occupational therapist was not licensed until she finally admitted that in July that she'd been treating his child and manipulating him into delivering the child to her on numerous occasions for months before she finally admitted that she was not licensed to practice, which in the state of Colorado is a misdemeanor crime that is required to be charged by the district attorney or by a law enforcement agent who has information about that. And I can tell you both the Dolores County Sheriff's Office and the 22nd Judicial District have that information in their possession, as does William First, because I put it into a case document October 30th of 2023 and filed that. Anyways, back to the story. In September of 2023, on September 26th specifically of 2023, there wasn't really anything going on. Mom had filed a motion to modify child support again because she claimed she was going back to school, but wouldn't give me proof of enrollment for some bizarre reason for quite a while. In the meantime, I approached the Dolores County Sheriff's Office, or excuse me, Dolores County Child Support Enforcement County Attorney Dennis Goldbright, and said, "Hey, I'm really concerned about the child support enforcement person, Janet Crawford, being biased and prejudiced towards my client. She's wrongfully taken his taxes. She's not following the law when she's calculating child support. She's basically letting the mother shirk her child support obligations, and your entire role is to make sure that these kids are being provided for by both parents. That's your job, Dennis." That's the county attorney's name. That's your job. And as a result of that, he told me I was wrong. I contacted Melinda Evans, the director of social services, who is well aware of problems with this family and has refused to investigate every single time something has been called into her office. Anyways, I contacted her and asked for a copy of the grievance policy. This was on July 13th of 2023. And bizarrely, as a result of me sending that email to her, I got an email back from Dennis Goldbright, who I didn't include in that email to Melinda, telling me that they were conflicting off the case as a result of me complaining. This was because I complained about bias and prejudice. They told me I was wrong. I asked for a copy of the grievance policy, and then they suddenly hightailed it, which read between the lines. This wasn't about me. I'm a private attorney. Yeah, I might be a pain in the ass. I'll own that. But that doesn't mean that you just change all of the rules because somebody challenges you. If I'm wrong, show me I'm wrong. Don't act all sketchy and disappear whenever I get close to catching you. You guys do that all the time. I'm quite aware of when you're lying to me, government actors that are watching this. Anyways, we found all that out. So the mom decided that she was going back to school. Still really don't know exactly if she did or not. I don't believe she did. She claims that she graduated December 6th of 2023. However, on her nursing application for her RN licensure that she applied for in September of 2024, she put that she only held an associate's degree instead of the bachelor's degree that she's working for the last 2 years so that she could obtain. I don't believe she graduated. I think she lied to the court. I think she lied to my client. And I think the only one she's telling the truth to is the Colorado Department of Regulatory Agencies. They need to know that she misrepresented her credentials because that is a violation of her nursing requirements as well. Just like the therapist, Robin Nelson, violated her duties by treating this child without a license for a period of months and not telling my client, falsely inducing him to deliver the child to her on more than one occasion, and then basically not telling him until July of 2023. So mom was pretty upset with me. I think that's fair to say. She was pretty angry with me because I told my client, make her go to school. Either she doesn't get the child support and we move on from this, or she does what she's required to do, like every other woman, like every other man who receives child support. Sorry, you either get the money because you're doing the thing according to the law, or you don't get it. That's how it is. And so I think that was her primary motivation. Okay. So, what was also going on in September of 2023, actually in the months leading up to September 2023, was I personally was having a number of issues with Don Wilson in the Dolores County Sheriff's Office. I began representing another client in March of 2023, a male client who was going through a divorce, who just so happened to be the brother of the grandmother in the other case. And they don't like each other. So all the women who were getting divorced teamed up, and the men that I represented teamed up. And the women started using the Dolores County Sheriff's Office to intimidate and terrorize these men. I have tons of documentation of that. I have recordings, I have emails, I have all kinds of stuff. What I don't have, bizarrely, is police reports because Don Wilson wouldn't document any of it. No, we had to do all the documentation, which I turned over to the district attorney's office, and the district attorney's office ignored me entirely, would not take this seriously, even though they also told me that if they caught the sheriff's office doing something wrong, that they would take action. I provided them copious evidence of the sheriff doing things wrong and hurting people, and instead of them taking action, they just started calling me names. Which is what fragile men with stupid, weak egos do. Shame on you. Shame on you in positions of power for doing this. It doesn't have anything to do with me. The fact that you did it at all is disgusting and you don't deserve to be in power. I don't care if I was the victim of it. What I care about is you took an oath of office just like I did and you violated it and you thought you were going to get away with it. And the fact that you were so bold documenting what you did tells me that you've done it before and you just never encountered an opposition like me. I hope more of you that have been targeted by these people start standing up to them because you know what? My life's not great, but I'm still alive. And you know what? If they touch a hair on my head right now, guess what's going to happen? Guess who's going to be investigated? Because I promise you, they're not that smart to cover their tracks. They couldn't even cover setting my client up for child abuse. Idiots. Anyways, little foreshadowing, the sheriff's office, along with the mother, the grandmother, teacher who was related to the mother, and the deputy district attorney for Dolores County, all got together to frame my client for child abuse. And I believe personally that the motivation behind the starting of that particular attack, I think they had that planned for a long time. But I think that Sheriff Wilson was upset with me because I was getting him in trouble for the other case where he was letting the wife terrorize that man. And I was turning things in to the DA's office. And I'm sure the DA's office, even though they would never tell me that, was absolutely talking to Don Wilson and saying, hey, Carlson's all over your ass. You better knock it off. And Don didn't like that because Don likes running a little mafia ring for his sheriff's office. Don didn't like the fact that he was going to have to do his job and follow the law. So that's why I believe Don Wilson got involved, which is to take me out, which I haven't shown you everything. But I will tell you, in one of his police interviews, he mentioned me specifically by name. Don't know why you'd be talking about a private divorce attorney in a setup case when you're doing your setup with the grandmother, who's also a government employee and happens to work for a local federal government agency and that has a presence in Dolores County. Anyways, Back to the story. So on September 26th, my client got served with a protection order. This was absolutely shocking to us. We believe we were just dealing with child support matters. No, the mother accused him of, there was three allegations on there basically. That my client had allegedly picked up one of the children by the neck and thrown him on the ground during a game of Monopoly for not counting the money fast enough. That he also tried to run the children down, or actually, it's just the first child. The initial report was just the first child, not both kids. Tried to run the child over with his truck for not wrestling good enough in a wrestling practice, and that he tried to beat my client or beat his child with a belt for wanting to be Christian instead of Mormon. And the mother who filled this paperwork out, along with the assistance of the Dolores County Sheriff's Office, which is unauthorized practice of law, put in there that there was a report. Now, I know what they were thinking. They were thinking they were going to throw some vague claims on there because they know a protection order civilly gets them 2 weeks of time. 14 days is when a hearing would be set. And I believe that their whole plan was they were going to fabricate the evidence over those 2 weeks. However, mom screwed up when she filled out the documents and used the word report, which tipped off Bloodhound Jill, who immediately said, "Where the hell is the report?" When I couldn't get a report from the DA's office, the sheriff's office, the mother, and they charged my client with crimes which would require some sort of report to be written. There was no evidence, there was no medical evidence. And on top of that, I went ahead and requested my client's CPS records and saw that for the 6 days leading up to September 26th, a number of people involved with the mother had tried to call and make false allegations of child abuse against my client to CPS. And I had that record in hand. I contacted Christian Hatfield and let him know that this was a setup. That was on September 27th of 2023. And despite that, they went ahead and still issued a warrant for my client, applied for one through the judge, had it granted. And on September 29th, as I was about to make my way out of town to go do something for myself, um, I found out that my client had a warrant for a felony case and a warrant for a misdemeanor case issued by Dolores County related to the same allegations that the mother made in her protection order request that I couldn't get a report for. They messed up right from the beginning. Their little conspiracy failed right from the beginning, and I kept waiting for Christian Hatfield or Jason Ely or Steve Bronk or Dennis Goldbright or William First to do the right thing and shut this down. Oh, sorry, Matt Margison too. I kept waiting for the men in positions of power who had the authority to do something about this to say, "Hey, Dawn, you real good. She caught you. We better let this one go. If you just back away from it and dismiss the case right now, she'll probably let it go too." Because if you guys paid attention, every single time you made it right, I shut my mouth and walked away. The ones I talk about are the ones you refuse to make right. And you know I'm telling the truth about that. But if you had studied your enemy the way I've studied you, you would have known all I wanted you to do was the right thing. But instead, what happened is a number of government actors all got together and decided to play dumb, gaslight us, put a variety of false charges on my client, try to intimidate my other client for months, followed them around town, tried to set them up in situations where they could get arrested, did investigations on them at bars, trying to investigate them for DUI days after they had been at a bar, and basically harassed them. And I tried to stop it through every single possible agency that I could, from local, state, and federal, and none of them would call me back. None of them would investigate my claims. None of them would look at my evidence. And I know why. Because what these guys did to us seems so absolutely insane that when I started making these claims, what did they do? What did the government do? Who did they call? Did they call the complaining victim or did they call the government? "Hey, we got a phone call from this Carlson chick." What do you think those guys all said to federal investigators? Because I guarantee you that investigation happened. And I guarantee you at some point in time the FBI was looking into what I said. But instead of being smart and looking at my documents, they decided to listen to these government actors, some who are definitely still in positions of power, some who might not have been in power in 2023 but are now. And they all lied to the FBI about me. And the FBI wouldn't help me because of that. The CBI wouldn't help me because of that. Phil Weiser wouldn't help me because of that. And I was telling the truth the entire time. Now, we tried to stop this. We tried to get these kids away from these crazy people in October of 2023. I asked for the appointment of a guardian ad litem or a child legal representative for the kid. I also asked for an immediate injunction, excuse me, an immediate injunction on Robin Nelson, the therapist, having access to the child. We tried to get school records. We were met with all sorts of opposition. Tried to get police records. Were met with all sorts of opposition. And I tried to tell William first about all of this. I let him know on October 30th, 2023. Hey, there's a really serious problem here, Judge. And you guys don't have to like me, but these kids are in danger. This man is being falsely accused. William First completely ignored us, which tells me that William First was very much involved in it because any judge in good conscience who knows about something like this happening would at the very least give me a hearing. And I haven't been able to get a hearing in this matter. I've not been able to get a hearing on these allegations. And little foreshadowing, it's already been ruled that I can't talk about any of the stuff that I've been sharing on the internet in our upcoming hearing in July. Magistrate Taryn granted that request in January of 2025 over our objection, limiting the scope of what I'm allowed to present, which is why I presented all of it on the internet for you. And I've got way more than what I've already given to you because I'm just doing this to catch everybody up. I know that this is a big gloss over. 21 minutes it's taken me to kind of catch you up on what was arguably the worst case of parental alienation that the country has ever seen. What was arguably the biggest failure of the justice system as it comes to these two children. This is my best stab at telling it under 30 minutes. I glossed over so much. But if you're interested, you're looking for a particular part, go check out parts 1 through 29. And if you want to know what Don Wilson did in my other case, I strongly recommend you go watch case number 1. It's a good one. It's a good one. If you like true crime, I call it real-time true crime because it's still actively happening. We're still being victimized. I am still very much the victim of a crime, as is my client, as are these children. And boy, oh boy, do the wheels of justice move slowly when the people in positions of power don't want you to be heard. That's why I've been trying it to the court of public opinion. What happened here was a travesty, and it was simply because of the pride of a bunch of men who don't deserve where they're at. They do not deserve the jobs that they hold. I feel sorry for the people of the 22nd Judicial District because I just tested the system for you, and I'm going to tell you what. They know none of you are going to complain. That's why they're not helping. They know all they have to do is tell you no, and you'll go away, and they'll keep getting away with it. I hope you guys decide to do better for yourselves. You don't deserve that. You need to get these people out of office. All right, we'll pick back up with part 31. Moving on to Christian Hatfield. All right, have a great weekend or great Monday. Have a great Monday. Have a great Monday.